And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Fealty by Asmadi Games, which is an abstract game for 2 to 4 players that plays very quickly, about 15 to 30 minutes, and has a theme of trying to place your different workers or your different minions in order to exert influence over the kingdom and be the most influential over the kingdom by the end of the game. So why don't we take a look at what you get inside this box here. We'll go over how the game plays, and then I'll come back with my extended opinion on the game. Here you can see a setup for a 2-player game of Fealty. It's going to be the number of boards plus 1 for the players, and you're going to always connect them so that these roads are touching. So you'll see there's roads on the board, and there's several other features. You have fields, forests, cities, and mountains. And these are going to be important for exerting influence, which will be placed at the end of the game in the form of these little tokens. And having the most influence on the board is your goal. Each player is going to have a set of tokens and a set of cards in addition to their little influence markers. And these cards and tokens are basically going to be the same thing. The tokens will go on the board, the cards you will place from your hand. There are 2 different sets of cards. There are cards with even numbers, so we have 80, 70, 50, 20, 40. All of those cards that are for a more simplistic play, and then in addition to that, you can actually use the same pieces flipped over to their other side, so we can see this one's a 15 now instead of a 10. And they have odd numbers, and they have different abilities. So you can swap out the easier abilities for the harder abilities, or vice versa, depending on what you want to play and how you want to play who you're playing with. Now, on your turn, you're going to have these cards, and you're going to play one of them. Each player is going to choose one secretly and play it face down, and then they're going to reveal them at the same time. And when they reveal them, they're going to look at the number in the upper left-hand corner. So, for example, this one's 20. Let's say I chose that one, and my opponent chose 60. And we played them both face down. And we reveal them. When we look at them, we're going to take a look and see who has the lower number. So, obviously, I chose 20. My opponent chose 60. 20 goes first. And this is going to allow me to play my knight piece out onto the board. And it says it claims any terrain next to it, and it's going to be immediately next to it. You can see by the icon here. It's 1 any distant from it orthogonally. So when I place this out, it'll, at the end of the game, influence all the spots directly around it. In addition, it says here, I can place one of the conflict markers within 2 spaces, and conflict markers are going to block the movement of influence. So I would place one of these out within 2 spaces of wherever I placed my guy. Now, the rules on placing guys are such. When you place your guy, at the beginning of the game, there's really no restrictions. You can place him anywhere on any of these 3 boards. You can see there's a modular. And when you place him, you're simply going to put him down. Let's say I wanted to put him right here. He would, at the end of the game, influence all of these spots. Additionally, he gets to put out that conflict marker, so he wouldn't want to influence somewhere immediately on these 4 because he wouldn't get the influence for, but let's say he wanted to put it there to block that city, which could score someone else a lot of points later in the game. Now, the next player, who chose the 60, is a little more limited in their options. They can only play on one of the 2 other tiles that the first player didn't play on. So they would take their 60, the Baron, and they would put it out onto the board. So let's say they wanted to put it right here. And if we look at the Baron, he claims everything within 2 steps of it. And you always have to step orthogonally, but you'll see 2 away this direction, 2 away this direction, and then the diagonals because you have to step over and then down or over and then up. So he claims all of those, and he has no special ability. Now, you're going to keep doing this throughout the game, using the cards and using their special abilities, playing a card face down, flipping it over, and using it, placing them out onto the board in speed order. I guess it would be the lower speed first, or the lower number first. But in future turns, you're going to be a little more limited in how you can play. So let's say the next time I chose the 50 and my opponent chose the 40. Okay, so they would go first in this case because they chose the 40 this time. So their 40 comes out, and you can see here that the 40 claims any terrain around it again, in 2 in a straight line. And then additionally, you can move one of your other pieces 1 space. So I'd be able to put out, or my opponent would be able to put out this 40. And they can put it out on any board again this turn, since it's a new turn. But what they can't do is play it in the same row or column as any of their previously placed pieces. So, for example, they could place it, let's say, right here. But they could not, let's put it there, they could not have placed it down here or over here in this row at all. So let's say they place it there, and at the end of the game, it's going to influence all of the 2 spaces around it. Additionally, they could move their one piece here. Let's say they wanted to move it over this way. After that, the purple player would play, and they're going to play their 50 piece, which is the ranger. And the ranger only influences forests, but it's all forests within 3 spaces of it. So you'd want to find a spot somewhere with a lot of forests around. Now, unfortunately, I can't play on this tile because I already played, or my opponent already played here, but I could place over here, just not in this row or in this column. So let's say I put it there, and it would influence a lot of these forests around it at the end of the game. And then additionally, I could take the special action to move one of my pieces 1 space. So I could say this guy's going to move this way or something like that. You're going to keep doing this until you've played 8 of your 9 pieces. And then at the end of the game, you're going to look where you're able to influence, and you're going to do that again in speed order. So the lowest speeds will influence first, the higher speeds will influence later. So you may be able to steal influence from somebody before they're able to get it, because no 2 pieces and no 2 colors can influence the same spot. So you're going to be competing for influencing throughout the board, and so when we did that, we'd say, purple would get this spot, and this spot, and this spot, and this spot, and all of these forests, and then yellow would get the spots around them. But if there were a conflict, for example, this knight were here, purple would get this spot, and yellow would be unable to claim those 2 spots down from there. At the end of the game, whoever manages to get the most influence onto the board is going to be the winner. And that's Fealty, a pretty simple, abstract style of game with a little bit of a theme added to it, but one that plays out very nicely. My opinions on the game are that it's very well constructed. I'd say that the modular boards are very nice, and they're going to give a nice bit of change to the game each time. The double variants, in which you have the harder to use cards and the easier to use cards, are very nice. And the expandability from anywhere to 2 to 4 players is very well done. Now, it may be a bit simplistic for some of those abstract players out there who are looking for a deeper, more strategic, more controllable type of game. But if you're a novice or even a casual abstract player, I think Fealty is something you're really going to enjoy. So I definitely suggest taking a look at this title from Asmadi Games. Fealty was one that I was looking forward to for quite some time, and I'm very glad to have picked it up and played it.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.